Here with us now is Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State under President Obama. Joel, good morning. Nice to see you again.
Good morning, Hannah.
There's a lot to dive into. Let's start with Hamas rejecting Israel's proposal to extend phase one of the ceasefire. Again, this is happening during Ramadan. What would it take to make sure that hostilities don't continue in that region?
Yeah, look, this is a very delicate moment right now. The end of phase one means that the hostage exchange for aid and for release of Palestinian prisoners technically comes to an end. And unfortunately, these negotiations, they really didn't get started in earnest until the last day or so. They should have begun several weeks ago. And what this could mean is that we could see a termination of these agreements. We could see an end to the exchange and a resumption of war. So right now, they're trying to hammer it out, but nobody should be surprised. These are very complicated diplomatic talks. And my fear is that we're going to see the Trump team now trying to pick up the pieces of a broken process rather than a smooth process into these phase two negotiations as we were hoping to have.
And Israel is claiming that there are 59 remaining hostages. They're still in Hamas captivity. They're also saying less than half of them are expected to be alive. How will getting them home weigh in on the negotiations that, of course, also include these critical security concerns that you just mentioned?
Yeah, look, inside of Israel, these releases have been traumatic for the population, watching the sort of parading, the despicable parading of hostages in front of the cameras by Hamas really turned Israeli public opinion. And then, of course, there was a family, the Bibas family, that was murdered by Hamas, and there were funeral processions for the family, for the mother across Israel. It is a very high priority for the population to get the remaining living hostages out. And those would be the first set of bodies of people coming out in this phase two. And that's why I think we're going to see a lot of pressure on the prime minister to not resume military conflict without getting these people out. Because as we know, and as you know, we've talked about this, the best way to get folks out and people out of Gaza is through these negotiated exchanges.
The White House has recently approved nearly $3 billion arms sales to Israel. What kind of defense preparations, Joel, would these arms go towards, especially considering it's not just Israel's conflict with Hamas, but other regional hostilities that they're seeing as well?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts on this. First of all, look, the Israeli military has been under extreme duress, fighting a seven-front war. And the United States, we are the core supplier of their munitions and of their assets, and they are using them to patrol the southern Lebanon region. Now they have concerns about Syria potentially. And of course, let's be clear, Iran may very well be in the gun sights of the Israeli military. What's intriguing about this also is that it was pushed forward through Congress. And I work closely with Congress throughout my work at the State Department. And you don't typically have funding go forward without congressional review. But this one, they essentially what we call blew the hold. There will not be a hold, and Congress will not review this. So it's clear that Israel is asking for continued supply out of concern that they need to have these assets in hand.
Joel, can we please talk about President Trump posting that AI-generated video on social media? Yeah, that featured AI images of him, Elon Musk, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They're lounging by the beach. It's a luxury resort labeled Trump Gaza. At first, I thought it was fake. The account was hacked. I was wrong. How could this messaging from Trump factor into these negotiations moving forward?
I think it's been devastating to the negotiations. I think it may be funny to some. It's not funny to real people living in the real world in Gaza and in Israel. This is the way to turn people away from the United States. And it's very important. I should mention this. The phase two negotiations were supposed to begin at the time when Prime Minister Netanyahu came to Washington. And that was when the president, instead of getting into phase two negotiations, decided to put forward this ridiculous idea of somehow turning Gaza into a playground for him and his friends. And now we see the results, is that there's been no progress on negotiations to get real people out. And instead, he seems to be embellishing fantasies that are not in the cards. And we need to have a reconstruction program for Gaza that's real, that will come after these processes go forward. But right now we're stuck, and this video didn't help it at all.
I have less than a minute, but I also want to ask you about the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Like I mentioned
Yeah.
before, it started overnight. Talk about whether this could impact ceasefire talks over the next few weeks. It usually lasts a month, just for our viewers.
Well, Ramadan Mubarak for all the Muslims watching today. And look, Ramadan is the holy month, as you know very well. And I think a lot of times we see a reduction in fighting clearly during these periods. It's a period of reflection. These conflicts in the Middle East are always intertwined, though, with religion. And
Yeah.
when October 7th happened, it was Simchas Torah, a very important Jewish holiday. And Hamas took advantage of that moment where we were praying and where Jews in Israel were going to meet with family. And so I hope that throughout this, we can respect the dignity of each other as humans, as people, observing and respect the fact that people in Gaza do want as well to have peace. And Hamas has been putting the boot on their neck for years. And hopefully we can get through this and respect the religion of everybody throughout this conflict.
And that's really the hope at the end of the day. Joel Rubin, thank you, as always, sir.